how to get into National University of Singapore and get this letter in your mailbox. I'll give you 7 tips and I'll cover GPA, essays, interviews, CCAs and things you need to prepare. And I'll spend my whole teenage life dreaming for this, preparing for this, and I'll share with you as much as I can. The first one is very important so that you know what you're working towards. Find out what are the admission requirements. Let's say if you want to study computing, then you gotta find out what's the minimum GPA score that you need to have in order for you to be considered, not guaranteed, but considered as a candidate. So different courses have different requirements. For example, medicine, the requirements are going to be a lot more strict. But one thing for sure, because the acceptance rate for NUS is less than 10%, which means that it is super competitive, so you must have good grades. Personally for me, because I know that it is so hard to get in, that's why I did my best in school to score as many A's as I can. And then I applied using my GPA and also O-level results. Yes, they require you to submit your O-level results. But the good news is that if you did not do well in O-levels, they don't really take it into account as much as your most recent results. For example, A-level results, or your IB diploma results, or your poly results. And of course, looking at the requirements are very important, but then in my opinion, you gotta exceed it because it is so competitive nowadays. If your course requirement is 3.5 GPA, for example, and a lot of the students applying have a 3.8 GPA, 3.9 GPA, then it is actually possible for NUS to reject you. So to be safe, just exceed the requirements as much as you can. So for example, my program that I applied for was architecture. I didn't finish the whole program because it's a long story. Even though the requirement was lower, 3.5, 3.6, but I tried to score as perfect as I can, 3.9 out of 4. And second tip, language requirements. Now, NUS requires that you are somewhat, okay, not somewhat, but be good in English, written and also spoken language. So if English is not your first language, which is possible for a lot of people, I speak Cantonese at home, so it's not my first language. Again, check the English requirements for a program. Some program requires you to have TOEFL, IELTS, and on some courses, they actually require you to take an English test. So I took an English test called a qualifying English test. Even though I had good grades in English, I still need to take this test and go to NUS for 1 day and then take this English test. So if English is not your strong subject, one way to really improve on your English really fast is to spend your holidays to read a lot of books. Can be fiction book, non-fiction books. This is what I did since I was super young. And that's why my English is better than my Chinese, which is very shameful. So when it comes to academic documents, make sure you have original copy, photocopied copy, because when you apply for NUS, you gotta submit a lot of different documents. And then comes the third point, which is portfolio. So if you're applying for design courses, art courses, chances are they will need you to have a proper curated portfolio to submit. So let's say, for example, your artwork and then your designs. So if you have done any artwork in school, don't throw them away. Keep it because you will need it for your uni applications. And then the fourth thing, CCAs, extracurricular activities. Now, a lot of people ask, so if I have good grades and I don't join CCA, is it possible for me to get in? Yes, it's still possible, but like I said, it is super competitive nowadays. Not only Singaporeans are applying, but overseas international students, you're competing with people all around the world. And during the application, they actually require you to fill up a section where you need to talk about your CCAs. What did you learn from this CCA? What did you learn from all your extracurricular activities? And if you leave it blank, it doesn't reflect well on you. Second thing is that what if another person has the same grade as you, but he or she has CCAs and you don't? So who do you think NUS will take in? To be safe, be very good in 1 or 2 CCA, maximum 2. Don't go beyond 2 because I don't want you to dabble and be mediocre in many different things, but you're good in nothing. And to add more so-called advantage for yourself, take up leadership roles. Because the easy thing is to just join clubs, participate, but the harder thing for a lot of people is to become a leader for a club, president for a club, vice president for a club. So back in my school days, I was a vice president for a couple of clubs, and also committee member for a few clubs. And I also joined a couple of swimming competitions, which means that I have no life. That's very sad. Again, for your CCAs, make sure you keep those certificates because NUS requires you to submit proof that you really participated in all these different things. And aside from CCAs, which I've joined, during holidays, I would volunteer for charities. Again, it's going to give you that added advantage because not only are you active in CCAs, you're a leader, but you also contribute to society. At the same time, you also have good grades. It's hard for somebody to compete with you like that. And when you implement the 5th, 6th, 7th tip, it's going to add more layers to your advantage. It's like you're the perfect candidate for NUS to take in. The 5th thing is to write a very strong personal statement. Again, depending on the program, very often when you apply to NUS or even NTU, they're going to ask you, so why do you want to join this program? Don't say, because my parents want me to study. Because the salary is very good, I want to become a millionaire. No. You gotta show that you really like that course that you're applying for. So for example, in NTU, I applied for banking and finance. And I said that I have a very strong passion for the financial markets. I love how the markets are driven by various different macro factors, economic factors. And in the future, I want to become a very successful investor. You see the difference? So this comes back to the previous point, which is you must be very good in English. So your statement has to be error-free, meaning that you cannot have too many grammatical mistakes. Nowadays, you have ChatGPT. Use that to check your grammatical mistakes. And also NUS might ask you this question. So why do you think you are suitable for NUS? It's almost like applying for a job. So you gotta do some research. Why do you want to get into NUS? Again, you don't want to write things like, because I want to be in a top 10 university, it feels good, I can brag to my friends. They're going to instantly reject you. Okay, now tip number 6 is going to add one more layer to your advantage, which is to have a letter of recommendation written by your teachers and also lecturers. In order to obtain these type of letters, it's not as easy as just asking a teacher, hey, could you write me a good letter, please say nice things. Don't need to. If you are truly a good student back in school and you have a good relationship with your lecturer, you pay attention in class, you respect your teacher will be more than happy to help you. Because when you can get into NUS, NTU, they would feel like, oh, I'm part of the contribution because I taught you this subject, that's why you could get in. Whereas if back in school you are a backbencher, you don't listen, you don't respect your teacher, you keep making noise in class, it will be very hard for you to have your teacher write a good letter for you. And there are certain ways in which I implement back in school to make the teachers like me a little bit more. There are certain techniques, strategies, not to manipulate people. There are certain things that you can do to make your teacher, you know what, like you a little bit more as compared to other people. Now the 7th thing, okay, this one I went through during my application to NTU. And for some programs, before the interview, they would require you to write an essay on the spot before the interview. So they're going to give you a clipboard with a piece of paper with one question. You need to write there on the spot. So it depends on the program, okay? If you do apply for a program that has an interview, the most important thing when you go into that interview is to be confident. Because when I applied for SMU, I messed up my interview and I learned from that lesson, and that's why they rejected me, which is very sad. I learned from that lesson and then I told myself, you know what, I'm gonna do so well in the NTU interview. So you gotta do your research about the course because they might ask you about it. The most important thing is, why do you want to study this program? That's a very common question that they might ask you. And also a very common question is, so what do you want to do in the next 5 years, 10 years? Share with us your goals, long-term goals. And sometimes interviewers will ask you about your CCAs. So that's why it's so important to have CCAs. They're going to ask you, so what did you learn from this leadership role? And during the interview, chances are there's going to be like 3 to 4 people. And I know some people get nervous during interviews. So what you can do is that before the interview, you're gonna practice your answers. So craft some sample questions for yourself, and then you just practice answering it over and over and over again. So by the time you go to the interview, you already know what you want to say. And I can tell one thing, if you're not confident, you're nervous, pretend that you're confident. Because When you exude confidence, people can feel it. When you are firm with your answers, when you say, this is what I want, I believe in this, people can feel your passion. And most importantly, don't apply last minute, because there are lots of things to prepare for and you don't apply in a state of panic. That's the last thing you should do, okay? If you have any questions regarding how to apply to NUS or maybe NTU, let me know down in the comment section below. And if you want some study tips on how I got from D's to straight A's, I'll put the video over here so you can check it out. So with that, I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.